Hi my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my channel. This video is going to be my January wrap up. January was kind of a weird reading month for me. I either read 13 books or 15 books. It depends on how you spin it. So we're going to call it in the middle and say I read 14 books in the month of January. We've got a reread, we've got a DNF, and we've got all of the cozy vibes. So let's get into all the books that I read in the month of January. The first book that I read this year was The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Brennan. I gave this one a 4-star and a 2 spice rating. This book is basically the movie You've Got Mail, but with more dead bodies. This is kind of zombie-esque, where Mercy is an undertaker and Hart is a marshal who patrols like the weird magical like in-between sort of lands where a lot of the undead bodies roam around. So he makes them go from undead to actually dead and then brings them to Mercy. But they have this kind of like hate to love banter. But they also are writing letters to each other, but they don't know who the other one is for a lot of this book. And it's very, very You've Got Mail coded. In fact, the cafe scene from You've Got Mail is literally verbatim in some parts in this book. And it really, that bit in particular really took me out of the story. But this also has one of my favourite like little micro tropes in it. And that's when they have the nickname, but the nickname is based on their actual name. Like, for example, Mercy calls Heart Heartache, and he calls Mercy Merciless. And I just love when they take their actual name and just turn it into like a weird little nickname, and it just makes me really happy. For this being like really cozy, the fact that it's like also zombies and dead bodies and she's an undertaker, and lots of people think that she shouldn't be doing this. There's another company that's trying to buy out her company, and it's Burzell and Sons, but she's the one running it because her brother, who was meant to be the one running it, isn't really interested, and her dad's not able to do it anymore. So she's basically running this business on her own, and the other undertaker in the town is trying to buy her out. But she really, really loves her job. She really loves like paying respect to these people that have gone through so much and these bodies and everything. Like, she just loves her job as an undertaker. I love the plot of this. I love their love story. This is just so much fun. It didn't get me quite as much as I wanted it to, but it really did make me laugh out loud. The tropes for this one are enemies to lovers, small town, hidden identity, and pet, because Mercy has a dog and Hart goes round to the undertakers and takes the bodies to her undertakers as opposed to the other ones, mostly to visit the dog rather than her. Which, I'm not a dog person, but even I can say that, yeah, that's kind of fair. Next up, we have Purity by Skylar Mason. This one I gave a 2.5 and a 2 spice rating. This book follows Cole and Livy is struggling very much with her religion and the aspect of purity culture when she's gone off to college, because she doesn't really want to remain pure. She wants to experiment, she wants to like lose her virginity, she wants to try all these things, but she's also struggling with that aspect of her religion because she made a promise to God when she was 9. Purity culture, in my personal opinion, is really kind of fucked. This book really reminds me of that song God is a Freak by Peach PLC. If you've not heard it, go listen to it. But in this, I understand like Livy's struggle with this. I thought Cole was really controlling. I mean, she does call him out on it, but I didn't love him. But the main issue with this for me is I just don't like heavy religion in my books. Especially religion, I feel like is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, and I'm not religious in any way, so I don't really want to read about religion in my books. It's the reason why the Priest series by Sierra Simone I've been putting off for so long, because it just really makes me uncomfortable, and I should have known going in, because I know it did deal a lot with purity culture. It is literally in the title, but I didn't quite realise how heavy it was going to be on the whole Christianity religion thing, and it's just not for me. I didn't really like the story outside of that because, like I said, Cole was really, really controlling and it just didn't sit well with me. I feel like I'm giving this a 2.5 mostly because I'm fully aware that I am not the intended audience here. But also, I don't think that I'm alone in this because I don't think this has a very high rating anyway. The tropes for this one are plus size and friends to lovers. Next, we have Fake Flame by Adele Buck. I gave this one a 3-star and a 3 spice rating. This book follows Sean, who is a firefighter, and Ava, who is his teacher, and her ex-boyfriend brings a grand piano onto like the quad and tries to serenade her after she's told him multiple times to get fucked. So she fully loses her shit and gets an aerosol can and a lighter and tries to set fire to it. So the fire brigade are called, and Sean is one of the people that turns up. Luckily, it didn't really catch on fire. It was more the threat of it. So she attempted to commit arson and then ends up fake dating the firefighter that was called out in order to get her crazy ex that cheated on her to leave her the fuck alone. Now, this wasn't bad, it's just that I found everything about it to be really surface level. Like, it tries to be funny, but it just falls flat. Like, instead of it being like a full belly laugh or even an actual chuckle, it's more that quick exhale through your nose, which apparently I can't do today, but it's like a single ha, you know, like a but that's it. That's the amount of funny that you get. This is third person dual POV, and there's one scene in particular where I feel like this is done really poorly because he's talking with his friends, and then literally a page later, it's a scene where she's talking with her friends, and this same scene plays out from her to him, from her to him, from her to him for like a full chapter, but it's like a page at a time from each of their point of views. And like in my head, I get how that would work cinematically. In a book, it just doesn't really work. Like, her point of view mostly is the fact that she's attracted to him, and his whole personality is he grew up with sisters. I really hate when that is a guy's main personality and he knows how to treat women because he grew up with sisters. It drives me insane because I know for a fact, as someone that grew up with a brother, we would beat the shit out of each other. Now, don't get me wrong, my brother is not going to lay his hands on another woman unless it's me. I love him to death, but like also, we will scrap because we're siblings. So the fact that like you wouldn't hit a woman because you grew up with sisters is the dumbest fucking excuse ever. And it also has one of my least favorite fucking conflicts ever, and that's the discussion of children. Because this is a yes or fucking no answer for people. If you're not on the same page on the topic of kids in particular, it's a make or break. And he's the one that wanted kids because he's 36 and he wants to be a dad someday. And she's 41 and she's very much okay with never having kids because, you know, she's 41 now. She doesn't want to be in her 60s when they move out. And because there's like a 5-year age gap. Now, I don't like the age gap trope, but when they're 41 and 36, that's not age gap. But I understand the different points in their life on the topic of children. I did enjoy my time reading this for the most part. It wasn't bad, I just wouldn't recommend it. It was just fine. The tropes for this one are fake dating and love at first sight. Next we have How to Catch a Bodyguard by Anna Ashley. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. This book follows Connor and James were best friends when they were 15, but then James had to move away. But now he's come back to the small town and he works as a bodyguard for the prince from book 1, and him and Connor are reconnecting. But someone's out to get Connor, like his house got completely ransacked, and James isn't about to let that happen to his best friend. This is a really cute male-male romance. It's just that the mystery element of who's out to get Connor was really sort of underwhelming. These were like really cute and cozy low stakes at the start of this series. This one's book 3, and I feel like the stakes are kind of ramping up a little bit. And I just don't think they need to be. I think like the cute, cozy vibes is just perfect. They're making the stakes too high, in my opinion. To be honest, I was more interested in how Bubbles, the escape artist turtle, was getting out of their enclosure than the mystery of who was out to get Connor. And the reveal of it was kind of sort of underwhelming anyway, especially considering there were like literal stun grenades in this. It's just too action-packed for a cozy little love story. Like, it's good, I enjoy it, I really like this series, I just think it's doing too much. The tropes for this one are small town, bodyguard, pet because of the little escape artist turtle Bubbles, and friends to lovers. But specifically childhood friends to lovers, but they've not spoken for most of their adult life, and then they've come back and reconnected as adults. Next, we have another male-male romance and another firefighter. We have Foolish Book Boy by Eden Finley and Saxon James. This one I gave a 4.25 and a 3 spice rating. This book follows Gabe and Alex is our hockey player, and he throws a bit of a party for the queer collective of the other queer hockey players in this series, and things get a little wild to the point where the fire brigade is called. And Gabe is one of the firefighter first responders that turns up to this party. Now, it was a tiny little, very controlled fire. Everything was fine. And it was mostly just dealing with drunken hockey players. Especially when Alex very drunkenly yells at Gabe that he would have his babies whilst wearing a 1920s flapper dress. This big hockey player in a flapper dress drunkenly telling another bloke that he would have his babies. Like, that's just adorable. Gabe goes to check on Alex the next day, and friendship, romance blooms from there. Now, Alex has just got divorced from his wife, and he knew for a long time that he was bisexual, but he's been with his wife since high school, so he doesn't really know how to navigate, like, a male-male relationship, and Gabe says he's going to coach him. Alex is just so nervous around him, he doesn't really know how to act, and he doesn't know whether or not it's the fact that he doesn't know how to be in a relationship with a guy or how to go about dating guys, or whether or not it's Gabe. And it's just so sweet watching him be so awkward. Like, I absolutely eat up this series. I fucking love it. It just makes me smile. And that is just the vibes that I want while I'm reading. I just want a book that's going to just make me happy and kick my feet. Especially the scene where Alex gets jealous. Oh, that made me giddy. I just want books like this all the time because it just makes me so happy. I love this series. The tropes for this book are the teach me trope, sports, and no third act breakup. Then we have my first reread of the year, which is To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. I gave this one a 4.75. This was the third time I've read this book. I listened to the audiobook for this one because I don't own a physical copy of it, and I still fucking love it. This one is a Little Mermaid retelling, but instead of a mermaid, she's a siren. And every year on her birthday, she goes and she kills a prince and collects his heart. And she has one heart for every year that she's been alive. But this year, she's out hunting with her cousin 2 weeks before her actual birthday to help her cousin find someone that she can take. But the lure to take another prince's heart, since he's like right there, was just too strong. And her mother, the Sea Queen, punishes her for it. So this year, she's not allowed to take a prince's heart. She has to take a sailor's heart. So instead, she plans to take the pirate prince's heart. When her mother finds out about this, she curses her to say, that's fine, but you have to do it as a human. You have to take his heart as a human. So she doesn't have the power of her song anymore. So it's very, I was sent to kill you, but I fell for you instead vibes, and that is just delicious. Now, I think the end of this book is a little bit rushed, in my opinion, especially because it's technically a young adult standalone and it's like 300-ish pages. I just feel like we could have dragged it out just a smidge longer. I really, really love this book. It's probably one of my favourite retellings, especially because it's such an obvious, blatant retelling. I'm not looking for it because it's just there in my face. And it's just done so, so well. I absolutely love this. This is probably one of my favourite young adult standalone fantasy books, honestly, ever. The tropes for this one are it's a retelling, there's monsters, because she's a siren, mermaids, and everything else in this. They're on a journey, voyage. There's a political takeover because she's due to take over from her mother, the Sea Witch. There's hidden identity because he doesn't know that she is the siren that he's been searching for to, you know. There's royalty, there's magic, and there's enemies to lovers. Next we have The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I gave this one a 4.5. I don't know if you can tell, but I also annotated this. This book is the absolute definition of cozy. This book follows Kyla, who is a deeply introverted book nerd, whose best friend is a sentient talking spider plant. I mean, I don't really need to tell you anything more than that, but I'm going to. So she works at this library and she basically lives there. She lives, breathes, and works at this library. She doesn't speak to anyone. She's just very much in the books, in her job. She talks to her spider plant best friend Kaz, and that's it. But the rebels are taking over the city and they started ransacking the library. So she gets as many books as she can and she gets the fuck out of Dodge. And she ends up going back to her childhood home on this tiny little island that no one's ever heard of, and she takes as many books as she can with her, which is technically not allowed, but also they were setting fire to the books, which, yeah, we're going to save the books. Of course we fucking are. Don't be insane. A lot of the books that she does end up saving are spell books, and magic is outlawed, but there is a lot of things with the island where the people that were meant to come and do the magic so that they could have crops and everything else, they've not been coming around for a while, and everything's kind of going to shit. So she does like little bits of magic on the slide to kind of help the island, and she uses the house and the shop as a cover where she's basically making jams, and she's selling jams, but she's also kind of using that as a cover for her magic and everything. And I love the introverted small town vibes. Also, he has like a seahorse farm next door, which is just really fucking cute. He lets her ride the seahorse, and it was just so cute and cozy. I tried to read it physically the first time, but it just wasn't going in my brain. So I ended up listening to the audiobook and like immersion reading it, and I really did have just an amazing time with this. This was so cute and cozy and fun, and I had a great time. The tropes for this one are companion, small town, and magic. Next we have The Orc and the Innkeeper by Cora Crane. I gave this one a 4-star and a 3 spice rating. I think I've discovered that while I'm not a big fan of bully romances because I don't like the toxicity of it, I'm just not into it, ex-bully romances are just mwah. This book follows Mariah and Thorak is our orc main character, and he used to bully Mariah when they were in high school together. And while they both still live in the same small town where they went to high school, they've managed to avoid each other for the past like 10 years. Until such a time where Thorak has a meeting at Mariah's inn. Now, Mariah has this issue where she's got these like pixies, like essentially magical termites that are basically attacking her inn, and she needs to have like a full rehaul of her entire inn, which is going to cost like a lot of fucking money that she hasn't got. But then she overhears Thorak saying that he has a human fiance while he has this meeting at her inn, and she knows for a fact that he does not at all have a human fiance because there's a lot of prejudice that his family has towards humans. So he obviously wouldn't have a human fiance. So she comes up with the idea of, I will pretend to be your human fiance if you pay to have the termite infestation got rid of for my inn. And he's really in a bind, so he does agree to this. When I say he was her bully in school, I think it was more that he was friends with the people that used to bully her and he didn't do anything to stop it. He said some not nice things a couple of times, but I don't think he was the one that was predominantly bullying her. I think he was more just friends with those people. So the amount of groveling was sort of equal to the amount of bullying done, which was not a lot. In fact, the way that the groveling was done kind of weirded me out a little bit. But I get high school trauma. I really do. So I understand that she would have her guard up around him, but he's been besotted with her for years, and he gets like really open and really vulnerable with her, and that really helps her to open her heart to him as well. It was really sweet and cute and really cozy vibes, and it was just a sweet fun time. I loved it. The tropes for this one are small town, monster because he's an orc, fake dating slash fake fiance, enemies to lovers, high school bully, and he has a pet teacup bull, which honestly was my favourite part about this entire book, the fact that he has a teacup pig. This big orc man with a tiny little teacup pig. Oh my god, that just made me happy. Like, you can't tell me that that is just not a really fun, adorable mental image. Next we have A Soul to Touch by Opal Rain. I gave this one a 4-star and a 4 spice rating. This book follows Mayumi and Formus is our big Dustwalker character, and he is the one with the cracked skull from the previous books. And Mayumi is a demon slayer. She used to work for the Demon Slayer Guild, but then an incident happened and she was let go. But now she lives in her parents' old house on the outskirts of the forest, which is where she comes across Faunus. This one, I knew that Faunus was going to absolutely break my heart, especially because he is the one with the cracked skull. And in this one, he doesn't want a bride. He doesn't want to be bonded to another person like that because he doesn't want the fact that he knows he's going to die, because the only way to hurt a Dustwalker is to crack their skull, and he's already cracked. Like, his time is coming. But he has been mooning after Mayumi for the longest time. In fact, that's one of the things about this that kind of doesn't sit well with me, because she is the first human to ever show him any kindness, because she, at 4 years old, wandered off into the forest to try and find her cat. She was sick and delirious, and she saw this big Dustwalker with like a skull cat head, and she thought it was her cat, and she called him Kitty and said, "Don't run away," and "I miss you." And this was the first person that ever showed him kindness. So he's kind of very, very sporadically been watching over her for years, because he's been very protective of her after this moment that happened when she was a literal child. But the thing that always gets me is, like, when she turned 18, that's when he started to get sexual feelings towards her. Like, the moment he saw her and she was 18. Like, I get that there were several years in between the times that he saw her, but like, there's something about that that never sits well with me. Like, it just feels like a cop out. It's just that one tiny, tiny little detail that just makes me icky, but like, I don't like it. This one is very slow moving as well. Like, it's a little shy of 500 pages, and honestly, you could take out 100 pages of this and it would still be the exact same story. But I really love Opal Rain's writing. I really love this series, and the ending. Oh, the ending got me with this one. I was choked up. I was having a moment. Oh, I just love this series. So even though there are little things where I am a nitpicky pain in the ass about it, I still love it, and I still recommend this series because it's so good, and the big demon men are so fucking sweet, and I love them to death. Next up, we have Mari's Mistake by Ruby Dixon. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. This is book 10 in the Ice Home series, which is the spin off of the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and the fact that this is book 10 is the entire problem with this book, because this is set basically over the last 9 books in total. This book follows Mari and Chai, and they meet basically in book 1. But there's something that happens where they have to get back to the healer, and they have to basically turn off resonance in order to save the life of one of the characters. But since resonance is being turned off, the healer is now incapable of turning it back on. But that means that Mari doesn't feel any form of like attraction to Chai anymore. Like, he still is really into her, he still really cares for her, but she gets this really horrible don't touch me feeling anytime he comes near, and she hates it because she still cares for him. She just doesn't want to engage with him because like her internal resonance cootie thing is telling her no, no, bad, bad, because the healer basically had to stop it in order to save them. But now she's at the point where she doesn't know how to fix it, and they've got this very strained relationship, so it's kind of like a relationship in trouble sort of thing. Chai really does love her, he wants the best for her, and he is very steadfast in his feelings for her, which is obviously why I love him. But she's kind of got this internal struggle going on, and I just feel like the internal struggle went on for way too fucking long. The fact that we went pretty much all the way to book 1 for the scene where they met, all the way to this one, feels like it should have been way earlier in the series, and this couple was just sort of forgotten about and just plopped in here. The start and end of this book are very, very fast paced, but it drags so much in the middle. Like, this isn't one of my favourite ones in the series, but I still really enjoy this series, so I'm still going to keep picking them up. It's just, I feel like this should have been like book 6 or something, not book 10. Next is the one where I don't know whether to count it as one book or 2, because we have Alien's Ransom by Ella Maven, which I gave a 3.5 and a 3 spice rating. But in this copy, there's also The Alien's Future, which is the prequel to it, which I gave a 3.25 and a 2 spice rating. So I'm going to hold this book up for both of them, but I'm going to review them separately, because I read Alien's Ransom first. So I listened to the audiobook for this one because it's on Audible Plus, so therefore it was free. This book follows Dax and Frankie. Frankie is our human main character, Dax is our alien main character, and Dax is set to transport this cargo in order to save his brother. But when he finds out that said cargo is actually human women, he sets about rescuing them instead. One of those human women being Frankie, who ends up being his fated mate. This does have the language barrier trope in it, which I don't love in an alien romance. Like, logically it makes sense, but like also I don't love it when they can't communicate for a good portion of the book. But that is like the first port of call that Dax has. He's like, oh, I need to be able to speak to her. So the first place they're going to go to is a place where he can get like an implant so that she can understand him and he can understand her. I was definitely more interested in the lore of the planet and the Draxian people and the history than I was with the couple themselves. The plot and the relationship were kind of done 50-50, and I just was more invested in the plot than I was in the relationship for this. And the sexual part of the relationship did start like really early on in this book. And she's a human woman on an alien planet where she doesn't speak the language. And yeah, he saves her multiple times, but also the first thing that you think of is that. Okay, I think you need to sort out your priorities a little bit there, babes. The tropes for this one are alien, fated mates, they're on a journey for travelling for a lot of this book, and motorcycle club in space. After I read Alien's Ransom, I then went and read Alien's Future. Alien's Future is the prequel that happens 10 years before Alien's Ransom, and it follows the alien that Dax goes to see in order to get Frankie's language implant. Dax doesn't know that this guy has a human mate, and it's their origin love story. When I was reading the reviews for Alien's Ransom, there was a lot of reviews that were saying that the language used, like when they changed like fuck to frack or things like that, the alien swear words, it got on their nerves a lot. And I didn't get that vibe when I was listening to the audiobook for Alien's Ransom, but when I read Alien's Future, I get it. Because every single time that it comes up with like an alien word, like an alien swear word or something like that, it's in italics. Like, it's just, there's italics on at least every single fucking page. And oh my god, it got so fucking annoying. I think it didn't bother me in the first one because I listened to the audiobook for it, but with the prequel, I read it with my eyeballs, and yeah, it was fucking annoying. And there were other tiny little things where the author kind of contradicted herself a little bit. Like, the female main character says that she wants to laugh with her friends and be with a man, but then she says that she's not interested in sex, and the only time that she was with someone, it sucked. So, which is it? You're either interested or you're not interested. Like, I'm really confused because she trips herself up like that quite a bit. I would be interested in continuing this series, but it's not high on the TBR. Next, we have The Wild Wolf's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells. I gave this one a 4.75 and a 2 spice rating. This one genuinely is the best one in the series so far for me. Now, I've only read book 1, book 4, and this is book 5 plus the other like companion novella that comes with it. I've not read book 2 and 3, but with this one I absolutely fucking ate it up, because while it is rejected mates, if you're looking for like the groveling that you get in book 1, you're not gonna find it here, because while yes, he does reject her, she rejects him too, because she has severe anxiety. I'm not someone that has anxiety, but like, oh my god, I felt it in this, because she witnesses an incident that leaves her literally so traumatized that she is on high alert for everything, and she's just afraid all the time, and she's just tense always. So when she finds her fated mate, she thinks that he is also a bad person, simply because she's kind of taught herself in her head that like all men are bad, all men have the capability to hurt me, therefore all men will. But he's not part of the pack, he's got this separate pack elsewhere, but he kind of comes across her territory somewhat often, but he spends a lot of time in his wolf form. And he tries to seduce her in his wolf form. And this is the part that just fully sold me on this. When he is flirting with her in his wolf form, he's playing in the flower beds, and he accidentally boops his snoot with a sunflower, and it makes her giggle a little bit. And he loves the sound so much, he continuously boops his snoot with the sunflower, and then he like gets his head down in the sunflowers and gives himself sunflower antenna in his wolf form, and just to hear her giggle again, and oh my god, I love him. I love him because that is the most adorable fucking shit ever. I love it. It's so cute. But after they meet for the first time, she basically tells him to get lost, and he says some things that were not very nice either. So when they do end up seeing each other again, they kind of reconnect, and she runs away to his territory, and he is the alpha of his pack, except for he doesn't like to go by alpha. Every time someone in his pack calls him alpha, he's like, I'm not alpha, like I'm not the alpha one, because he leads his pack with kindness and respect instead of like being an alpha hole. And he's just so sweet, and I really, really love him. He is soft, but he is not weak. He is just such a sweet little jelly bean, and I love him to death. He makes her feel so safe and so seen, and he moves at her pace because he understands now that he's a few years later and he's grown, and he gets it, her anxiety. He sees it because another person in his pack has severe trauma and anxiety, and she acts like he does, and he's there like, oh shit, something's happened and I have to be more gentle. And he's such a sweetheart and I love him. And the anxiety rep in this, I think, was done so well. I genuinely was going into this expecting like a 3.5, and I fucking ate this shit up. But I feel like this series is very roller coaster for me. It's got its highs, which is definitely this book. It's the best one in the series. I'm very much looking forward to continuing this series. I'm not sure I will with books 2 and 3 because they are tropes that I don't love, but I might give them a shot anyway. There is one character story which I'm hoping is going to be the next one in this series because I need Kennedy's story so bad, but I fucking love this. Speaking of soft cinnamon roll werewolves, the next book I have is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire by Sarah Hawley. I gave this one a 4.25 and a 2 spice rating. This book follows Ben and Eleanor, and at the start of this book, Ben is at the wedding of the couple from book 1, and he obviously, as one does at weddings, gets very, very drunk. Then he proceeds to go home and do some drunk shopping on eBay for like some crystals and stuff, and he finds this plastic crystal with a really weird description on it, and it was like $1. So he's like, yeah, fuck it, why not? Because, you know, drunk shopping and shit happens. And then it turns up and it's this plastic crystal that Eleanor is trapped inside. So Ben is now technically Eleanor's master, and she has to do whatever he says. Now, her last master had her do lots and lots of killing, which she wasn't really a fan of. Like, she did it, she's good at it, but that doesn't mean that she enjoyed it. But Ben, being our sweet, gentle cinnamon roll werewolf, he doesn't want to order her to do anything, but he does accidentally kind of tell her that she has to do something in order to help him out, but he doesn't realise the extent of the curse because it was just a plastic rock. It kind of didn't come with instructions. It's kind of an enemies to lovers thing because she resents him because he's like the owner of the curse and she has to do whatever he tells her. But the second he finds out about the curse, he makes it very, very important that he will never give her an out-and-out order. If he does, by mistake, it's very quickly followed by an if you want to. I feel like the plot lines for this were just either too many or just kind of weird. Because yes, their relationship is one of the major plot lines, but instead of breaking the curse being a big plot line in this, I feel like that was just such a secondary plot line. The one that kind of stood out was the fact that Ben's sister was running for mayor, and that was focused on a lot more than it should have been. Like, why do we care? And she was running against Matt Cunningham, who is the villain in the other books as well. And she's just such a caricature villain. But I really like Sarah Hawley's writing, and these just give me like the perfect cozy vibes that I was just 100% here for in January, apparently. Finally, we have another vampire guide, which unfortunately was our DNF of the month, and that was A Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I DNF'd this at 58%, and I ended up giving it a 2-star on Goodreads. I picked this one up mostly to kind of read something just a little bit different, get out my comfort zone a little. I have read a Grady Hendrix book before, and it's the one that does sort of technically come before this one. So My Best Friend's Exorcism follows the teenagers, but this one follows the adults like 10 years later. And I just know that this book, it's not for me. I'm not the target audience of this book. I'm not a horror girly. I don't know why I try. I think it's because a lot of the booktubers that I watch, and some of my favourite booktubers, do read a lot of horror. And then I will pick one up and remember that I am not part of that club. It gave me the ick so bad. Like, it really grossed me out. And the characters were just really pissing me off. Like, for example, there's one part somewhat near the beginning, again, because I only read 58% of this book, where the main character gets attacked, and then she takes a casserole round to the family of the person that attacked her. Why? Why? And she was even saying that, like, I don't have a good feeling about this, but I have to be polite. But it was just truly pissing me off. And then I got to the part where there's, like, the misogyny of it all. And I had to DNF it because I just could not fucking cope with the way that husbands were acting. I had to put it down. I didn't want to DNF an audiobook. I don't know why, but there's just something about DNFing an audiobook. I feel like I had to get to the end. But every time I went to pick it up, I would find 12 million other things that I wanted to do. I would put off every chore that I was doing for ages in order to do something that wasn't listen to this audiobook. So I had to DNF it just for my own sanity. I think that's one of the reasons why I read so much romance. I want fluff. Horror is not fluffy. So I need to just stop attempting horror books because it's not the vibe. I'm not that girl. So it's not for me. And that's all the books that I read in the month of January, but in 2025 I also want to be filling up the TBR basket in my wrap-ups. Now, the TBR basket isn't necessarily like a set in stone TBR. It's just like, what am I in the mood for? What are the vibes I'm feeling going into February? There's no guarantee that I'm going to read everything in this TBR basket. For example, there are still 2 books in here that I didn't get to in January. And honestly, I think I'm going to leave these 2 in for February. So we have Reckless and we have Done and Dusted. I think these 2 are staying in for February. We're feeling the cowboy vibes. But also, I think I'm going to read the last book in the Black Bear Clan, which is Her Orc Warrior, so that's going in the basket as well. I think I'm going to do a reread of the Clicaean series, so I'm going to put Saving Verico in there as well. I think I'm also going to finally attempt to get to The Right Move by Liz Tomfordy. I feel like this is going to be one that I've hyped up too much, but maybe February will be the time. What else are we in the mood for? So we've got monsters, aliens, cowboys, athletes. Ooh, yes. I also want to try and get to this duology of Into the Crooked Place by Alexandra Christo. These are the Fairy Loot editions, but Vanessa with Read with Dr. B is doing like a Fairy Loot February, which I will put the announcement video for that in the description down below. So I want to read these ones for that read along. The fact that there is like, what, 50-page difference between these 2 books annoys me. I think that's everything that's going to fit in my TBR basket for February. So if you managed to get this far into the video, then leave a flame emoji in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here. And I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.